that means we are live here on YouTube. It is Friday, 4/12/2019. You got tax day on Monday if you live in the US. Just a gentle reminder. Sorry to start the show on a down note because it is Friday Fun Day and we've got Mark here. We're all going to have a great time here today.
Are you a man? I want to know if you are a man.
Yeah.
You know, because obviously I've been just, corrupted with toxic masculinity because I refuse to participate in a Friday Fun Day.
All right.
My goodness, you're 5 years old.
Well, we're going to keep it fun here today, Mark. And
you can have fun, but oh my word!
I know this is a trigger for you. That's all right. Welcome out, my brother. How you doing today, anyway, Mark?
Good. You suck me into a halftime report today.
That's all right.
Happy to be here.
Cody, what about you, young man? How you doing out there in Hawaii?
I am doing fantastic. I actually before the show took a little stroll around my backyard, took in some fresh air.
First of all, the islands are amazing. If anybody's out there that's never been, I would highly recommend it. I know that's cliche. I remember when people would talk about going Hawaii trips, and I always thought, oh, that's just way over the top. You're making it sound like it's better than it is. Quit bragging. No, it literally does have different energy. It has a different feel to it when you're on the islands, and I love it out there. I know that trading out there can be a little bit of a challenge because you got to wake up early to be up with the market, right, Cody?
That I do. I will say though, and nothing is Hawaii, but I would say visit here, don't live here.
Yeah, all right. Some people do agree with that. I know a Texan in Hawaii, you probably want that barbecue back in Texas. That's why you bought that Traeger, though.
Oh, yep.
Maybe you should smoke up some meat this weekend. Maybe I'll do that, Mark. We'll make it a weekend barbecue extravaganza. The Friday Fun Day is inspiring me here today. I'm going to see how many times I can use that phrase to annoy Mark. Let's get down to business, though. Let's talk markets. There's actually a lot going on here.
You better stay married because you ain't getting any women with that game. So.
Oh God. All right. S&P 500 is up here today, guys. Bank earnings, some mergers, product release out of Disney. We've got strength in most of the market, weakness in healthcare. Just start with the technicals.
Pull up a 15-minute chart.
Let's do it.
My girlfriend, which will be forever my girlfriend, the 9 EMA, for those people that are participants in the pro community that hear me talk, teach, preach about that. On the 15-minute chart, which you do not have up, go to the SPY. Go to the SPY. And do you have continuous time periods on?
I do.
And that's always going to wreck things. Well, if you don't have continuous time periods on, you will see that the SPY came down to the 15-minute 9 EMA, held out there for an hour and a half, finding support on it. You should get the continuous time intervals off your chart, Cody. Computers use the non-continuous time intervals more in their trading decisions. So it came down for an hour and a half. So we have a gap up, we have a little sell-off, and whenever that happens, whenever you have the market up on a gap to start the day, and then have that sell-off, which has been really frequent over the last 6-7 weeks. How many times have we seen a gap up and then a sell-off? There's always that question in a trader's mind. Is it going to hold? Are we going to have a more prolonged sell-off, or is it going to hold and bounce? I use that 15-minute chart to help determine, to help guide me on whether there is more of a sell-off expected today. And if you pull up the SPY and look at that 15-minute chart on that 9 EMA, you'll see that my girlfriend there, she held for an hour and a half. Support. Great technical signal bouncing off it. There is a ton of strength in this market, as we've been talking about for 2 weeks. This market wants to go up. It's looking for an excuse to go up. Forget rationality. Forget global bad numbers. This number wants to hit all-time highs. Technically, it is incredibly strong. There is just a ridiculous amount of bullish sentiment in this market. It wants to set all-time highs. It will look for any excuse to set all-time highs. And we're on the way.
So when do you make the argument, even with all the other around the world, that negative news coming out that the United States might be the worst of the bad, and being the worst of the bad does make you the best? It might be going up.
Let's not have a logical argument. The data around the globe is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
The data in the United States is terrible. If you think market price behavior is rational, then you haven't been trading very long. If this data continues terribly, is there going to be a sell-off? Could we have a dramatic sell-off? Of course, we likely will. But in the short term, markets, what is that phrase, Tim?
Yeah, markets can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent, I think is what it is, which means that it doesn't have to make sense to you. The market will do whatever the heck the market wants to do in the short and near term. And right now it wants to go up.
It does. And I mean, and those signals, I mean, technically those bullish signals, it just wants to go up. It wants to set those all-time highs. It wants to party. As Eddie Murphy said many years ago, it wants to party all the time, party all the time.
That song. Oh, Cody, find that and put it on Twitter. That is a blast from the past. I do like you. See, Mark, you're even having fun on a Friday fun day here. Eddie Murphy references. I'm sure we'll get some Prince, Michael Jackson references going.
Okay, if you want to tie in. So when Eddie Murphy, and this is the basis of a huge Chappelle. Did you know Prince was an incredible basketball player?
I do. Yeah. Well, just from the Chappelle show. Yeah.
But there was an ESPN special on it recently on the Final Four, because the Final Four was in Minneapolis and Prince's hometown. Many love Prince, my favorite artist of all time. But Prince was an excellent basketball player. And so Eddie Murphy, when his Party All the Time song was out, he ran into the club where Prince was at. And if you haven't seen the Chappelle show, there's an incredible skit where Eddie Murphy and his crew came back to Prince's house. And
Charlie Murphy tells the story. Rest in peace, Charlie Murphy. But
I mean, it just a true funny story. And Prince, they're all hanging out. And Prince is like, "This bores me. Let's play basketball." like 2 a.m. And so they go out to their basketball court. And Prince, and they're all in there, and I guess Prince's team schooled him.
Yeah, and he's like in his high heels. Dude, that's an amazing skit. I'm going to watch that now. Mark, you are dropping a lot of
Game blouses. Game blouses.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Hilarious skit. Chappelle show. The best comedy of all time, in my opinion. Just absolutely hilarious.
By the way, if you're here right now and you're watching the halftime report, welcome out. We're going to break down the markets every day. When we do,
we actually they talk stocks. When I get hosted, I'm going to talk pop culture and everything else.
See, my job in life is to keep everybody kind of like all reined in, and moving forward step at a time. But on a Friday fun day, the gates are open. We can do whatever we want.
Happy Friday.
And if you are watching, the daily halftime report is a way for us to go through our daily routine. We do a lot of advanced strategies and content and things like our lounges and our shows and in our systems over at tackletrading.com. And when we do this show on YouTube, it's to work through the markets, kind of show a trader how to do the daily routine. So let's break this down one thing at a time. On the S&P, probably the top headline for me, Disney. Give me Disney, Cody. We were talking about it in the pre-show. They announced their Disney Plus service. Now, if you're out there and you're a Disney Plus fan, and if you're watching it, or if you've subscribed, I don't even know. It's open now, I believe. You can subscribe, Cody, yes?
I believe so. I haven't even looked into that. I was just reading the news about everything that's on it.
Yeah, me too. I haven't actually seen whether it's actually live yet, but I did see they put the pricing out there, $6.99. It's going to include Marvel and Star Wars and the National Geographic Channel. Now you've got me sold, by the way. Pixar and all kinds of different stuff as a part of this streaming service.
Nope. It launches November 12th.
So is the price today. It was just the pricing today at $6.99 per month, which is deliberately undercutting Netflix, Mark. Number one, is this something you would subscribe to? And what do you think of Disney's news and the reaction from investors?
Do you have an 8-year-old daughter?
I have a 9 and a 7-year-old daughter.
And you will be subscribing to Disney's subscription service. Yes. You don't have a choice as a father.
No.
It has the shows kids like to watch. And so as a parent, think about this. Think about this. When you're analyzing a stock, oftentimes we get caught up in the numbers and the day-to-day price movement. But at the end of the day, these companies are businesses. And so when you evaluate it, and I've been talking about this on our pro subscription service, 15-day free trial. if you aren't out there. And anyone that's heard me talk about Disney for months now has pointed to this subscription service. Now, I'm an idiot and got called out on my covered call a couple weeks ago. So obviously on this chart, I'm like, that only cost me a couple grand, but I made money on it. And guess what? There'll be another trade around the corner. But one of the reasons I've been so bullish on Disney for a long time, and people in the lounge and our pro members will say, yeah, Mark, you've said that. Once again, you were right. Once again, one of these days I will listen to you, is that this subscription service is a game changer. Parents will subscribe. Non-parents will subscribe. It is an additional source of revenue and has the chance of being a home run. Disney already has their many media outlets. They already have their theme parks. They already have ESPN. They already have this huge, gigantic empire. They even have a Star Wars franchise that they're destroying, but still making money.
They are destroying it. We're not going to get
They're destroying that franchise and still making bank on it. And this is a new, additional, potential, huge source of revenue and profit in a space that is only increasing in the amount of users. More and more people are accustomed now, when you talk to them, say, do you own cable? No, I don't own cable, but I have Amazon Prime and I have Netflix. That's how they start to consume their entertainment online, is I have a few of these things instead of traditional cable. They're entering a space that is a growth industry, huge source of revenue. Parents are going to subscribe to this. And at $6.99, they're going to line up and it is going to be a no-brainer. Watch Jesse, watch Camp Bunked, watch the many other Disneys. You can even, for you people that are nostalgic, actually old enough, can go watch some Hannah Montana, go relive Miley in the past. I mean, it's going to be a huge home run.
They have that I was listening to is with their recent acquisition of Fox, they have 30 years of The Simpsons.
Yeah, James just put that in the chat and just made me think, companies, they have an entire philosophy called re-optimizing old content. I mean, 30 years of Simpsons episodes for that fan base, that's going to attract them right away.
And think about this. Think about this from a business perspective. Netflix, what do they have to do to acquire their content that they currently do?
Netflix, they have to create new content, or they have to buy old content. Sometimes they do.
They got to spend a lot of money.
Yeah, they got to spend money.
What does Disney have to do?
They just have to repurpose it.
They just have to repurpose it. Yeah, they do not have those huge, gigantic costs that Netflix have. They just have to. They are already producing an absolute metric ton of content that people enjoy.
Do you think they will continue to let Netflix show their content, or do you think they'll be, not renewing contracts for? Oh yeah, absolutely. That's my point, is that eventually there's going to be no Disney, there's going to be no Star Wars on Netflix. There's going to be none of that.
Correct. Well, Netflix is already pulling down some of the content. I think they canceled like some of the Avengers shows they had that were streaming season based. What was the one with the guy who couldn't see? I can't remember.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
My daughter, when I started thinking about this about a year ago, when my daughter says, how come Jesse's not on Netflix anymore, Dad? That was the show she was watching. And I was like, oh, Disney, power play.
Well, markets love it. Disney's been on our Tackle 25 watch list. We have already kind of curated our favorite 25 companies for cover calls. This is one of the drawbacks on a cover call, but that's the trade-off you get into. You don't catch the big rip-roaring upside moves when they announce a big new product or something like that, and the market loves it. But you still made a little money on the cover call when it went up, and you have a trade-off there. Disney's looking good, obviously, here today. It's not a new entry point, Canada, in my opinion. Obviously, a gap out. Earnings coming up here, definitely a watch list candidate. Other news in the markets today, I saw that Chevron actually acquired, Anadarko Petroleum. We're going to talk about both of them. Real simple way to teach something here. When you have an acquirer of another company, mergers and acquisitions, this would be an acquisition. The acquirer usually has to pay a premium. They paid $33 billion for the purchase of APC. APC stock shoots up. Chevron comes down in the short term, but those aren't necessarily fundamental moves that put it into a downtrend. Mark, this can throw off your moving average systems and whatnot, though. What's your reaction to Chevron? How do you read the chart?
Okay, how do you play a gap? whenever there's a news event, how do you play a gap? In fact, we went in our the other night in Mind of a Trader. You can sign up for that 15-day free trial. Go look at the recording. We talked about specific gap strategies. So whenever there's a news event, you have to treat it like a new chart. And first of all, ignore always charts that the news events. As a general rule, the market oftentimes, the acquiring company, they'll send them down a little bit. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean a darn thing in the long term, you know, from a technical standpoint, but it does create some short-term volatility. So Chevron, a company many people like to acquire for dividends. Oil has been hot lately, but you got to treat it like a new chart. You know, look at the first 30 minutes. Those pro members that, you know, saw, I mean, I'm not going to, I mean, that was a 25-minute lesson and we don't have time to go into all, but you do have to have gapping specific strategies in order to trade this in the short term.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Look at APC real quick. Just a quick lesson on the company that is being acquired. When you have a deal like this done, Mark, that gap out might be very attractive, but frankly, it's not tradable for here in my systems. If other traders have systems that they use that are still tradable while it takes that time to get all of the shares done and all that kind of stuff, I don't know. Do you ever trade post-acquisition gaps, anything?
Listen, I got thousands of trading instruments. I ain't got time for that.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, no need, no need. Move on to JP Morgan, if you would here, Cody. Bank earnings started out, and I got to tell you, you know, halftime crew, this was a good earnings report for JP Morgan. Mark, I know that we had Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, I think PNC as well. When you see the gap out on JP Morgan, what was your reaction?
I'm looking for, and I talked about this yesterday in the Traders Lounge. I talked about what I would like to see is a gap up and then for whatever reason, a pullback in the coming days to the old resistance area. Classic pattern, you know, you gap up outside of resistance and then you have a nice pullback where old resistance can act as new support. And that was my ideal setup. Now, if JP Morgan just takes off and runs, I'm going to miss it. But it's very common for that pattern to occur. Gap up, sell off for a few days, find support at resistance, and then take off. That's what I'm looking for on this particular stock. This is one of the 100 trading instruments that I personally trade. So I have a specific plan. And I talked about this in the lounge yesterday. Have a plan during earnings season. You're going to have volatile moves. If X happens, what is your reaction? If Y happens, what is your reaction? And with JP Morgan, a gap up, come back, find support at the old resistance level was my plan. I can't play a runaway because look where previous resistance was on the chart. So I don't have a lot of room to find a reasonable spot on the chart where a target might be. I don't have, my risk to reward is off. So that was my plan for JP Morgan coming into earnings.
You know, a couple other bank earnings came out. PNC, give me a quick look at PNC if you would, Cody. Same thing, strength. You know, we had strength across the board. This one has a little different pattern, but you also have old resistance as well. And then Wells Fargo, which actually I've been more bearish on recently, but earnings kind of kept me on the sideline. I love the breakdown. And now you've got a breakdown on this chart. Wells Fargo going down, JP Morgan going up here, Mark. What was your reaction to Wells Fargo's chart here?
Well, my plan on Wells Fargo was hoping you'd have a sell-off and then you would find a reversal signal, because if you go back, to like a 3-year weekly, you're going to see and that was a Q, Cody, on Friday Fun Day to go to a 3-year weekly. You're going to find a really strong level of support. Don't highlight, go back, go show that old resistance, the old support level. So we have a really strong support level at around $44 that was tested over multiple time periods, multiple times. In an ideal world, I am planning on acquiring 100 shares and do my boomerang build-up strategy where I add 100, then another 100, then another 100, then another 100 if price goes down, using that support level as the acquisition target for that first 100 shares. That's what I'm planning to do. Remember, Wells Fargo is a really, really big company. This isn't some small cap company that, you know, you can be like, oh my goodness, what happens if I own 100 Wells Fargo shares at $44? Not the worst thing in the world. A little bit of a dividend, can do a little bit of covered calls. Now, of course, I wait for a stabilization, then a reversal signal. But JP Morgan and Wells Fargo doing exactly what I wanted them to do. So I'm very excited for those trade setups to emerge. But you do not want to catch a falling knife. Wait for that reversal signal to emerge on Wells Fargo.
You know, the entire XLF is now moving here today, Cody. Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, you know, Schwab, CME, all of them have kind of popped up. You had a bearish retracement developing. Does this move you now, Mark, where the daily charts are now breaking out? You had an upward movement. It was only a few companies, not everybody. The very first wave, the first day of earnings from financials. Do you move into a more bullish posture here on XLF, or are you still cautious?
No,
No, you don't go bullish right away.
Earnings for me is not the day of earnings. I don't do anything till 3 days after earnings. If you've been around at all, I mean, don't fall into the rookie naive trap of, oh my gosh, it's producing a signal. That volatility and that emotion surrounding earnings, wait a few days for it to play out. You still got 2 months and 27 days to trade the stock. Wait for a few days, see how that pattern emerges, unless you are an expert in that company, and use the fundamentals and your reading of the actual report in your decision-making process. But listen, you don't have to have been trading very long to know that price behavior following earnings is really funky. You'll have gap ups and sell-offs very frequently. And so give it a couple days, let it shake out. Let's see if it's really real or if this is not all just computers trying, continuing their takeover of our known universe.
You know, one stock that is really grabbing my attention, it was on the option report. Coach Frank, good reminder here, is PXD. PXD is up 10% today, and up at 167. I don't know if you're out there, if you're not using a report, you got to start using the reports. You got to learn how to use them properly, position size, use them appropriately, understand drawdowns and expectancy and everything a trader needs to do. That's why you tend
all I know is that anybody in an option, send Tackle Trading a thank you for all the freaking money you made today on that
option. First, take the gift and turn. Take the gift in the market. Take that money.
Young man, that is very, very wise advice.
They're running all the oil companies. I mean, the news on APC leaves a lot of people wondering who's going to be acquired next. Yep. PXD, CXO. CXO's up 10% as well. Concho Resources. We're seeing these moves. These aren't done deals, though. So I do think what Cody and Mark just confirmed is the right way to approach it. Take the gift and cash it in, right? Usually I'm a let your profit run kind of guy, but this is not really the same situation as just having a nice move on a chart. Is it, Mark?
No.
Double-digit gaps in your favor do not happen often. So when they do, don't get greedy. Take the gift. Go look for the next.
Remember, you're entering gambling.
By the way, I'll do a shameless plug here. Reports will be out this weekend for our pro members.
No. Remember, when you have huge gap ups, unless you have specific gapping strategy, you've really entered the world of guessing and gambling, so like on a huge, gigantic gap up. So unless you know and have expertise on how to play a gap, wait for the next entry point. Take your money, take your profits, wait for the next entry point.
A couple more S&P 500 companies grabbing my attention. United Health, we have to start there. We talked about healthcare yesterday, and I did a deep dive as to how you had a split in the market, and I talked about Cigna and UNH, and we went through them. We have now the healthcare sector rotating out, and UNH is maybe the biggest company in that sector for the healthcare plan companies. Guys, in front of earnings, we are now moving down, breaking down below support, showing weakness. Before we get into the why, Mark, just read the chart on that. Could you even trade that soon in front of earnings, even on the breakout if you missed it here?
Are you a day trader? Are you a hyper short-term swing trader? Is that where your expertise? Then the answer is yes. Are you a classic normal trader? The answer is no. But once again, real short-term traders, day traders, and hyper swing traders have advantages that a lot of other traders don't. They can take, they can profit in these situations without having to worry about earnings. They have a lot of advantages in that aspect.
Yeah.
But huge bearish signal, breaking trend lines, breaking support. Yeah, nasty chart.
The problem with these companies right now is you have political risk. Bernie Sanders came out and gave a speech about how he wants to change Medicare and all this kind of stuff. Now, I know the election's a long ways away, but politics will play into this. You have a split, political situation here in the U.S. right now. And I don't know what the future of healthcare policy will hold, Cody.
I don't trust anyone that says that bread lines are a good thing.
You don't like bread?
Bread lines are a good thing. That means they're sharing the food.
I showed up just in time. Yeah. Just in time.
In other countries, the rich people keep the food and poor people don't get any. No, that's what bread lines are. Thank you.
Well, you've reached the halftime of the halftime report, and this segment is brought to you by Tim's Socialistic Movement of America, Bernie 2020, and all left-wing policies.
Oh, I'm a capitalist. I'm actually a very conservative economist in that regard.
I thought you were about to say I'm a very conservative socialist.
I don't believe in free school for kids. I think kids should have to pay for college. I think if you have completely free college, that's a crazy idea. Don't get me started on politics. We talk about it on a podcast.
But Tim, we can just use debt to pay for the college and then get more debt. And actually, we can create banks that can create more debt.
Hey, listen,
it works.
Modern monetary theory, you don't have to worry about a thing.
You should subsidize college. It shouldn't cost $300K to get a degree, okay? But it shouldn't be free either, because then people don't have skin in the game. It is a Nassim Taleb concept as well.
When college started increasing their prices rapidly was when the government started getting heavier and heavier into student loans.
I'm
when
putting
the
them
backing up this debt, and it's no longer private student loans that are doing it. Then that's when you start having the prices go up, because the private colleges know, and the private or public universities, they know that, it's going to get paid. So they're going to keep pushing that price up. And then the monetary policies with these loans start matching what the cost of college is, which they're just feeding into each other.
I'm tabling this. We're moving on. What was like in medieval times when a lord could say, I'm calling in my favors and I'm calling in my status, and we are moving on? I don't know what that is, but we're doing that right now.
Game of Thrones this Sunday.
That's right. That's right.
All hail King Tim.
Move on to the Dow Jones Industrial Average. DJIA YM contract.
We'll have the Iron Throne.
Who will have the Iron Throne? We did debate that on the podcast. Shameless plug for the podcast. I'm so fired up for the Sunday release.
I can't wait. I literally can't wait.
Yeah. Does Disney have HBO Go? No, they don't. So see, we're still going to have all of our different services. I don't necessarily think that it does compete with Netflix. I think Netflix can still profit and stand on their own and grow on their own. But I know Netflix was down today. We'll talk more about Netflix here in a minute. YM contract fading up higher. Noah, welcome to our show.
Buenos dias. How you guys doing?
Good, man. We're having fun here on a Friday fun day. Mark enjoys that title a lot. Read the chart for me, Noah.
It's a Fibonacci Friday, remember?
Before you start your thing, I read online yesterday that some university had started a men's cuddling group where you could take a live class, and it is.
I'm going back to school right now.
Men's cuddling. So I think Can
you major in that?
Look into that.
Is that like basket weaving?
Men's cuddling.
I'll major in that. That works for me. I'm cool with that. See, I'm confident.
Yeah.
All right. So, hey, what are we looking at the chart?
YM contract moving higher. Dow Jones Industrial Average.
It went up. That test bounce we were talking about yesterday came through. Again, you look at some of the components of the Dow and you get a big pop by some of the banks. I think that's one of the driving factors. Disney's one of the factors. So there you go. Little confirmation up. I think it's going to clear resistance and probably be joining the other indexes and testing those highs.
It's benefiting greatly, obviously, from Disney and JP Morgan. We already talked about them, but Boeing is back up today here, guys, 2.4%. At 380, you're smack dab in the middle of 360 and 400. Now, I've asked Matt this question many times, and he's got a firm stay away, just too many unknowns. But I got a question for you guys. What about a bidirectional trade? I mean, you have earnings coming up. I expect Boeing to not stay stuck in the mud forever. Could you map out a theory behind something like a debit condor or a straddle or a strangle, bidirectional type idea here? Noah, what's your thought?
Yeah, I mean, it could. It comes down, I think, in this case, a question of the volatility. If the options would price out, I wouldn't have a problem doing a bi-directional trade on it, because you'd have, if it was like a debit condor, you'd have fixed risk. So yeah, there's no reason you couldn't do it. It's just a matter of whether or not the numbers work out and the trade looks like it would benefit from the price movement enough to merit the risk. So yeah, you can always argue, and especially when you know how to trade. And you've got a lot of bags of tricks, you could probably find a way to trade and make money and or lose money on anything. But it's whether or not it's worth the effort and time, risk reward. It's always going to come back to, could I better allocate my money someplace where I think I got a better edge?
Mark, straddle is a straight volatility play. You're going to have negative theta. Debit condor, where you go bi-directional, kind of mitigates some of that theta. If I look at Boeing, the implied volatility is not as high as you might think. It's only 31%. It's in the middle of its long-term ranking and range. You've got earnings coming up here in 2 weeks. Do you ever do anything like that, Mark, bi-directional up and down?
Every once in a while, but my stance on Boeing is just, it's Goodfellas to me. If you remember, there's a scene at the end of Goodfellas where Paulie, they're trying to debate whether people will rat on them and whether or not they should kill them. And, some kid's named Tommy comes up and everyone around the table says, Tommy's a solid guy, or I can't remember the name, whatever the name was. He's a solid guy. I trust him. Another guy says, yeah, he would never rat on us. Solid as can be. And then Paulie says, yeah, why take the chance?
Yeah.
And so that's what Boeing is to me. It's like, why take the chance? There's so many other things to trade. I just, wait for this whole storyline to play out.
And Patricia makes a really, really good point. Last point on politics here. Unless you live in a socialist country for 20 years, you don't know what socialism is, in my experience. And I agree with that 100%, Patricia. I am not a socialist, Mark, for clarification. I am a capitalist. I do believe in some of the left policy when it comes to certain things, but I definitely do not believe in socialism.
You do believe in taking the Iron Throne and then bringing up the subject again when it benefits you.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about
tabling this for another time.
I'm going to table this
podcast
until somebody supports me, and then I'm going to bring up the point.
Hey,
podcast.
Remind me all to tell you sometime about the summer I spent in communist Russia.
Hey, listen, I had a student I was talking to last week that grew up in Vietnam in communism, and his family literally had to flee Vietnam. And I've heard these stories many, many times. I get it. I mean, the left in America, they are spoiled in one regard, and people who know me know I'm fairly left in many, many of my policies. But they're spoiled in one regard. They think that left means socialism, and what they're trying to perpetuate is dangerous, in my opinion. When you start doing all of this stuff that we're seeing, Noah, I don't want to go down the road of politics forever, because I do have mixed feelings about this one. When you look at history and you look at what happened around many of these countries, you look at what's going on around the world, it's not the same. It's not the same. We live in a great country. So, and I know it.
We live in the greatest country that gave the most innovation, helped raise more parts of the world out of poverty than anywhere else, and people spend their time bashing that system as if it's corrupt and evil. Is there crony capitalism? Yes, but capitalism in itself is what brought majority of the country, or not even the country, the globe, and raised the poverty level. So it does bug me when people are like, oh, let's go to socialism, though, because it's failed so many times in history, but this time it'll work.
It's the no true Scotsman's fallacy.
So young and passionate like Cody. I wish I gave a shit about that subject, in any regard, but I don't. I just let me make some money on some charts.
It does remind me of a Mark Twain quote. I love last one, Mark, not a point for me, just a quote. If you're not a liberal when you're young, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative when you're old, you have no brain. That's Mark Twain, one of my favorites of all time.
So what does that make you, Tim?
I don't know. Maybe I'm the Tin Man or the Scarecrow. I don't know.
He's the man behind.
I just want to make money.
Let's make some money then. All right.
Free markets. We love it.
All right, moving on to NASDAQ. So, tech sector, how are we doing, guys?
Strong. It's been the strongest. I know we're heading higher here today. The NQ contract, what are we up? 0.3%. We're fading into a Friday, but you're looking at the all-time highs. I'm looking across some of the NASDAQ stocks. Probably one thing that's keeping it back is that Netflix, moved down. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Mark, read the NQ here, though. It feels destined for 77.28, if not higher. What's your take?
I mean, we've had it slightly stronger than the market as a whole. The trend's been strong. It's an easy chart to read. I mean, literally, if you can't read the uptrend this year in tech, probably need to take some Tech 101 classes, because that is a really, really strong trend. Continues to show strength in a variety of different ways, slowing down a little bit as we head into resistance, which is actually what many traders want to happen when looking at a breakout. You don't really like it when it just goes flying through. A little bit of slow, gradual build into that breakout it can provide a real strong sustained breakout. The market's heading for all-time highs. It literally is going to have to take something drastic for markets not to hit all-time highs coming up.
It feels like it. Yeah, I know we got earnings next week coming out on many, many major companies, not necessarily all the big name tech. But give me a chart on Netflix, if you would here, Cody. News on Disney propels it up. Obviously, the big takeaway is that Netflix is going to be hurt. It's now back into support. Earnings coming up here. Noah, when you see a chart like this, you got earnings next week. Is there anything you're going to do with that?
No, I actually closed a position out on that just to avoid earnings. It's earnings is, your risk is correlated to control. And because you don't know what's pending on earnings, if in doubt, sit it out. There's no need to trade unless it's a volatility specific trade for earnings. Unless, again, probably the other situation too, I think, is if you're operating from a big point of profit, like if you bought it down at 260 or 280 and you're sitting on a pretty profit, you might let that ride. Mm-hmm. But if you're not sitting in a big point of profit, close it out and avoid earnings.
Apple got another downgrade today. Also some competition in their space brought the stock back down here. One of the reasons why the NASDAQ is trailing some of the other stocks right now. I like the pullback. Any pullback on Apple here, to me, could be developing into a bullish retracement. Now, we can talk fibs later. That's not exactly a Fibonacci retracement down to a key level. Couple of candles here at the high mark, but you are riding that girlfriend of yours right there. What's your read on Apple?
I mean, it's just whenever it came down to support, it's just bounced. I mean, the sentiment behind Apple ever since that breakout that occurred, about a month ago, has just been really, really strong. I mean, that was an explosive move up. I wouldn't want to be on the other side of a bullish trade.
Oh, Matt has a line on that. I would wait for him to say it as well. But I think the short interest on Apple is, I have to look this up. Shortable, yes. It's like 2%. I want to meet the 2% of these people. So who is betting against Apple Computer up here at the high when you
see crying about the bear market on Twitter all the time? There's these perma bears out there that are just like mystified right now.
I got to meet these people that are just betting against it.
The perma bears just literally should go shoot themselves on Fun Friday. That should be their Fun Friday activity. I'm really bearish on a macro standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
Extremely bearish. But you cannot fight short-term trends. They're too powerful. When the market wants to go up, it's going to go up. And ever since it broke out of its resistance level a few weeks back, I mean, this market is heading towards all-time highs and probably a little bit above those all-time highs before the market even starts to think about, should we evaluate, the bigger picture.
I've got a line for that, perma bears. The market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent.
We used that today.
Second person to bring that up today. So.
All right.
I do like the line, which is why we dropped it earlier.
Noah joining the frequently said saying Friday.
Hey, I'm just chock full of all kinds of little colloquial sayings.
Noah makes me laugh all the time. Noah makes me laugh all the time.
We're having fun. We're dropping sayings. We're reminiscing. We're debating politics. And we are even talking about money. A lot of good opportunities out there today. Cisco is probably one of the best big cap techs. We've been talking about this. I don't know if there's a stronger stock that's this size or above, Mark, over the $200 billion mark. Bring up CSCO if you would here, Cody. Just a juggernaut breaking into new highs again. Why is Cisco outperforming the others of the FANG stocks here, Mark?
You had a real long consolidation on Cisco. I mean, if you look at the chart, you were, and go back in time a little bit, go to weekly candles and then back up for like at least 1 year time period. But you traded in a sideways consolidated fashion for the better part of a year. Whenever you have these very long consolidation patterns, when you do break out, and this stock was on our pro stock report when it broke out, another winning trade that we have shown. I mean, if you're not a member of our pro service, you literally do not like to make money. There's my pitch on this Friday Fun Day. If you're not a pro member, you don't like to make money. You want to live in mediocrity the rest of your life, because our pro picks have been outstanding. Cisco, another example, when it broke out, it was on our report, and you think you could have made a little bit of money on that move?
Or maybe you don't understand. Like, I do get every now and then I'll get somebody say, hey, Tim, I don't know what to do with it. And so you have to, but that's where here's no excuse Friday. Okay. Get your butt in a seat and learn how to go out there and do it. There's not instant fixes in life.
Noah, did you make money your first year of trading?
Yeah.
Yes and no. I made a bunch of money and then I gave it all back.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there is a learning curve. Whenever I have done 3 activities in my life, I have played poker for a living. I have bet sports for a living. I have done market analysis. I have been mediocre to terrible at each of those things for the first year plus. There is a learning curve. You have to acquire information, and then you have to battle yourself. It is not an easy, there's a reason not everybody does it. There's a reason most people fail.
Yeah.
That is what we're here to help you get over that hump. Yeah. Help you get over that learning curve, to walk with you as you struggle in that first little time, because we all go through it. You just got to get over the hump.
I'll tell you a story right now. I actually have a friend of mine in my office today, and I'm teaching him how to do some day trading and whatnot. And the very first experience and exposure he ever had to markets was with a day trading room before he knew what he was doing. And he lost money.
Like a day trading room, like back in the Super So's days,
back in the days,
like the parlors before the internet was a real thing.
That's right. Like back in the day, joined a day trading club, and they're all like talking about, high-fiving and this kind of stuff. And he never really had a system. And so over the last little bit, I've been teaching him how to back test and perfect his entries and money management and position sizing and design. And the confidence and the change in the way somebody approaches trading once you get over that learning curve. Mark's 100% right. I don't care how long it takes. If you have a desire to be a trader and to earn financial freedom from home and over time, it might not be tomorrow, but learn how to do it, and learn how to do it day by day by day.
Our goal is that you get enough knowledge and become good enough that you leave us. And maybe the only reason you stick around is to say, I like those guys. I want to party all the time.
Yeah.
With tackle trading.
Team tackle.
Describing technical analysis 101 and system development 101.
System development 101, TA 101. Go through the 101s. But even more, as much as important, get your butt in a seat and attend the Traders Lounge.
Yeah, literally, our only goal is to get you to a point where you don't need us anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, that is our goal. Our goal is not to keep you around the rest of your life. Our goal, it is the old analogy of teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. That whole analogy, which I probably slaughtered on some, but you get the point. Well, we want to teach you how to fish.
I will say this, and this is not.
We are not Bernie. We are not here to give you fish lines. Where you stand in line for your fish.
Even a 10, 15-year veteran, I would pay for tackle trading because of the bird dogging on the weekend. Just the option report alone. Knowing that 10 veteran coaches went out and found trades and then they curated for them.
I promise there is likely someone that paid for their tackle subscription just on the Cisco trade.
Yeah.
That we provided on the stock report. I mean, it's been a home run with no cell signals.
We're rapid fire through. There's some other here, Cody. Google next. Google's got a complex pattern here. I'm not sure if it's a cup and handle. Go off the weekly back to the daily, take a look at it. You've got pivot relationships that are a little bit strange, kind of a consolidating triangle. Earnings coming up here end of the month. So you've got a little bit of time here. Noah, read the pattern for me, if you will.
I like the consolidation on it to a breakout. It's kind of cup and handle-esque if you tip it. That smaller pivot's going to probably clear, and then it's got a little bit of overhead resistance. But yeah, you've just got that general kind of symmetrical triangle to a breakout.
Mm-hmm.
And up off those moving averages, I just see the whole market drifting higher, and that's got a very clear path once it breaks the last level of resistance to the next one, and so on.
Mark,
that
I'm a big
looks
fan
like a
of
potluck casserole. I mean, that's not the pretty. I mean, there's like, it just feels like somebody threw all of the ingredients in that chart and just, it's not the prettiest chart in the world, just overall the last year.
No, it's
There's
not
a reason
my
Matt's
favorite.
axed it twice from the scouting reports.
Yeah, it's just strong though. I mean, Google is so fundamentally sound. Their PE multiple is down in very attractive levels. They make money. They just make tons of money. Call it like it is. It's just a strong company. So it's got a complex chart right now. A couple of that do not actually. PDCE, bring this one up. Grabbing my eye on a bull breakout. Frank probably already has this in our bird dog stuff. You're breaking above the 200 MA. You're breaking above resistance. You got clear air here, Mark. When earnings are 1st of May, do you have enough time to play a breakout like that?
Sorry, I'm having my early lunch multitasking.
No,
yeah, I mean, that's enough time for most short-term traders to take advantage of a setup.
I agree. And as I look across, Urban Outfitters is grabbing me on the downside. Bring up URBN. Brick and mortar retail.
Eddie Murphy song. Grabbing me on the downside.
No,
grabbing me on the downside.
Oh, it is Friday Fun Day. What the heck, right? We're having a great time. We talked about this one the other day. I don't know if the hipsters are not buying anymore, if they're just going online, Noah, and buying from Etsy. Urban Outfitters obviously in a downtrend, breaking down on some weak candles. Noah, what's your read?
I think the entire retail sector is going to continue to struggle, like the brick and mortar stores specifically. So,
did you see Jeff Bezos? He encouraged retailers to match Amazon on their minimum wage hikes.
I did.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, Bezos, like they can afford. Like,
yeah, they'll put themselves out of business.
Yeah.
What an evil empire move.
Quick peek at Amazon on this one. I thought that news was amazing because he actually had some shots fired right back at him. I love Walmart CEO Dan Bartlett. I think he does a great job. He's turned that company and moved it forward into the new millennial that we're in. And that company is now evolving and growing. Amazon said, hey, what was his exact quote? Match our employee benefits and our $15 minimum wage. That was Jeff Bezos. Dan Bartlett came out and said, how about paying your taxes? So
not too shabby.
Yeah, I did like that. And Macy's CEO actually came out and challenged him as well. He had a lot of shots fired right back at him. It's a good question. Why doesn't Amazon pay any taxes, Noah?
Well, let's just not be coy. The tax code is written for corporations. It is written so that corporations that participate in certain activities that create the goods and services that the people need. So, real estate, for example, has really good tax shelters. Corporations that build businesses and generate commerce, they get tax shelters. That's what it's all about. Their employees will pay taxes. They do generate sales taxes and things of that nature. So at the end of the day, they get special deals. I mean, they ran them out of New York because they wouldn't give them special deals on their taxes.
Interesting. Another company grabbing my attention on the NASDAQ is
whenever
Lyft.
Tim says interesting, he actually doesn't find it interesting. That's his transitional.
No, I do find what Noah is saying interesting. I'm actually saying, I'm looking at my charts, looking through the market performance. Lyft grabbed my attention. Lyft was interesting to me. Bring up Lyft if you would here, Cody. These IPO stocks, I don't know how many times we got to talk about this, but we're going to keep talking about it. IPOs are not the same as they were 20 years ago, and that chart has been destroyed. They obviously priced it a little bit too high. The people who were in before the IPO are now cashing out. You're seeing pressure on that stock. Mark, how long does a company have to give you data before you're even willing to touch it?
Oh, that's a great question, actually. Once again, I usually maybe a year. Like, I just don't have a lot of interest. I ain't got time for that, as Trevor Noah would say. So no, a year. Like, maybe if I see a bottoming pattern 4 or 5 months, but I mean, you're just dealing with one gigantic gap here. If you think about it, you know, you have no stock history. You have, you know, the IPO itself is a volatility event, and you see really weird price behavior.
It's going to keep grabbing the attention of people. For me, I don't know. A year seems like more than what I need. I'm willing to trade a lot of companies.
You know, but what's funny is if this was 1999 and, you know, we had the IPO insanity of the NASDAQ, Lyft would be at $200 right now.
Yeah, no, it would.
Don't tell me markets are rational, because in 1999, this stock, same fundamentals, same situation, would be $200.
Completely different. Exactly. I agree with that.
Not as, you know, IPOs are not as sexy as they once were.
Move on to the RTY, if you would here, Cody, /RTY small cap market. And the rut has been boring. 1600 is key, though. If you're a cash flow condors trader, have a plan, execute the plan, make sure your system is in place and you know exactly what you're going to do, whether it's nothing or something. Depends on the trader. There's no doubt about it. There's not much going on with RTY. Move on to the $DXY, if you would here. And we're stuck in the middle.
Back in that range.
I'm still a little bit bullish on the dollar. I don't know how much, maybe just a hair, you know.
I'm still bullish.
Of weakness I see in Europe and other areas.
Tim, grab me on the downside, stuck in the middle. You are a catalog. You should go write song titles for Eddie Murphy. You know,
that's right.
Just, you have them like just lined up.
Stuck in the middle was the Steelers wheel song. I need like sounds of the 70s is what I need right there. Noah, what's your read on the dollar index here in the chart?
You know, it's like the little currency that could. I think it's going to eventually retest those highs.
But little currency. The little currency.
The little currency. It's just, I think I can. It's still the strongest of all the, you know, global currencies. It's the only one paying interest. It's, you know, we're not printing, we're not negative. So I think it just is a matter of pressure over time. It's building that ascending triangle type pattern. If it eventually breaks, it'll run. But
I love your pressure over time analogy. Isn't that what a consolidation pattern is, especially when you have lower, you know, higher lows or some formation? It's like pressure over time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be an interesting conversation. I can't wait to hear Coach Keith. One of my favorite things on Fridays is when Keith joins us for the scouting report meetings and we get to hear his wisdom. He always has a few one-liners, quite frankly, that it's just fun. It is Friday Fun Day when Keith starts dropping things, knowledge in a Boston accent, and he's going to be doing our Forex report over the weekend.
Wicked cool.
Knowledge in a Boston accent.
Oh, when Keith says wicked.
Stop. Wicked
That's
smart.
like Goodwill Hunting up in here. That's what that is.
That's right. Crude light, if you would here. Crude light has had, and give me weekly candles if you would here for a second, Cody. We're ending the week. Mark, you do the commodity report, for tackle trading, I think pretty much every week these days. And crude light has had a huge, tremendous win streak on the weekly candles. Just up since the first of the year, the end of Christmas, pretty much. It's been going straight up. Now it's got little bit of resistance in the 65 zone. What's your take on this one, Mark?
I mean, go to the daily chart again. I mean, it's setting up for another breakout. I mean, what's nice is that in crude oil and lots of other stocks, but the crude oil patterns have been so textbook all year long. Go up, form resistance, break out, go up, form resistance, break out, go up, form resistance, which is what it's doing this week, setting up for that next breakout. It has been so textbook in the formation of resistance, breaking out, trading sideways for a few days, breaking out, and that's what it's set up to do again. So are you going to bet against price history for the year? Or would you I think it's going to break out again here coming up. So.
Yeah. You know, it's strong. We're risk on right now, guys. I mean, you've got bond markets, you've got commodity markets, you've got currency markets, you've got equity markets. And right now, people are seeming to want to buy equities and commodities and the riskier assets as we're moving higher. And crude light is the biggest commodity in the world. Noah, any extra addition to what Mark just talked about there?
Not at all. I mean, it's.
Oh yeah, you do. Add some seasonality to
it. Well, that's the thing is this is a Hollywood true confession. That's in my playbook. Seasonality on oil every year. I didn't trade it that hard this year because I had doubts about the inventory. I had my own analysis paralysis, Ilka, But my seasonal expectation for oil every year is like March through May, June, somewhere in there. It has a really strong bull market, and you can pick the oil itself. You can pick the oil producers. Part of it is, I think, due to seasonality change between formulas and gasoline, between cold and warm weather, but it tends to be very, very bullish, and it's usually good through June. Peak oil consumption's 4th of July weekend.
Mark, how many barrels per day does the U.S. put out right now?
Oh, I don't know, but I know relative, they're
Like
getting
12?
to the point where production, they're going to be the top oil producer.
Pioneer Natural Resources CEO came out and said within 5 years, he thinks they're going to get up to like 17 million barrels per day.
Gosh,
Everybody
I can't wait to short oil.
I get why Noah
like
had
in 6
concerns.
months when the setup, no, I mean, listen, there's a great shorting opportunity coming up. But, once again, it is so important to detach your analysis because you are so often wrong. The chart is so much smarter than you. The ability to read trends. Be like our friend Frank, who says, listen, you guys are all idiots for even talking the news. Let's just look at charts because guess what? They'll make you money. You learn to read a chart.
Yeah.
Ignore every bit of news. You can retire wealthier than you could possibly imagine.
It's true. Take some of the noise out and focus on what's happening, right?
Because we're all idiots.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all idiots, but
sounds like I'm going to have the weekend off now. No newsletter needed.
No,
that's actually reasonably funny. That's the first time Cody said a joke that I actually was like, I like that actually.
It landed for you. I like it.
But yeah, read a chart. Ignore the news. Read the chart.
Gold. Let's flash fire through a couple here. Gold next, if we could. Cody.
Sorry.
It's all right. You're making jokes.
He was basking in his own glory.
I know. He was
like, I made Mark chuckle.
Yeah, let that soak in for a minute. Don't step on my laugh, Tim.
Mark gave me a backhanded compliment. I'll take it.
Oh, gold is neutral in my opinion right now as we're compressing in a very complex kind of symmetrical triangle pattern. I have no idea where it's going to break and run one way or the other. Nope. A lot of it will dictate on the dollar. Mark, neutral call till we get more clarity. Yes?
Yeah. I mean, I've been cash flowing. I've been doing a variety of little things, making a buck or two here or there, but it's not, it's cash flow is nice and it adds up over time. And since I own gold, it's better, like if I'm going to own something permanently anyways, which I do with gold, might as well make a couple bucks along the way, but certainly been in a consolidated formation for the last going on a couple months.
A little bit. Yeah. Quite a bit here. And last is Bitcoin. And then we're going to do a quick Fibonacci example. Just one.
One?
I think so.
Making us bring up Bitcoin. I'm kidding.
Hey, listen, look at the volume. Take what you just said, Mark, about what Coach Frank described. If you just read the chart, you don't care about the fundamentals, the news, or what the product is. That is a rotating trend on high volume that is showing me a developing pattern here. Breakout at 5,500 has clear air, guys.
Does Bitcoin bubble 2.0?
It might be Bitcoin bubble 2.0.
But that's the thing is, like, whatever your opinion is, you can make money on a variety of trading signals. So, like,
yep.
God, we just really are just so dumb, aren't we?
Most of the time.
But hey, guess what? I'll enjoy being the dumbest person on the planet as my bank account grows and grows and grows.
There you go.
I will bask in that stupidity.
I agree with that.
I'm not a smart man.
I am not a smart man. Jenny, why don't you love me?
And last thing here today, guys, I asked Noah to come in here and do an example on Fibonacci retracements. And Cody, and you've pitched this documentary to me a couple times, Cody. I got to watch it. I will commit to watching it with an open mind. Right. It's on Netflix or something about the golden circle.
The code.
Okay.
It's called The Code. So it's got some cheesy parts in it. It's definitely, but it's a mathematician. He goes through how math can relate to nature, which includes the Fibonacci and the golden rule.
Yeah. It'll blow your mind. Oh yeah. It's like, I never, if you had told me when I had started trading that I was going to go down the Fibonacci rabbit hole and try to reach spiritual enlightenment, I wouldn't have believed you. But it really does make you think, because the Fibonaccis are named after Leonardo Fibonacci, who was a 12th century Italian mathematician, who discovered the series. He wasn't the first one to discover it. He just rediscovered it by estimating rabbit population growth. And he discovered a pattern that you created the Fibonacci sequence, which led to a couple of other little, aha moments. And he ended up calling it the divine ratio because he thought he had found the fingerprint of God. So as it pertains to trading, though, you guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. AMD has a decent little Fibonacci personality. And Fibonacci is also known as the golden ratio. It's a pretty powerful mathematical concept, and it does permeate nature. It's everywhere you look. Whenever let me actually give you guys a website you guys can look at real quick. This will kind of be a fun, quick lesson, and then we'll show you the chart action. Goldennumber.net, third-party website. I have no idea who runs the website, but it's got some fun pictures on it and things. And it's when we say it permeates nature, like you could just take a look and stare at your hand for a minute and blow your mind on the Fibonacci ratios on your hand. It's literally in your DNA. The growth of your body, it's the Fibonacci sequence 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 59. It's a pattern. And it's basically increases at about 1/3. So 1 and 1, 2 units is, plus 3 units equals 5 units, 5 units and 3 units equals 8 units. If you held your finger up to the screen, you've got giant Fibonacci ratios. You could actually do what's called a knuckle trade. You hold your knuckles up to the chart and it'll give you a nice pullback. That's just mathematically proportionate. So there's 2 uses of Fibonacci's. You can use it for pullbacks, retracements, and extensions, how far you think it's going to go. And you've seen us draw pay range boxes over and over again on charts where we say, well, the stock tends to move this much, but it's not just one price range. It's actually a couple of variables. So check out AMD where it came in and found this double bottom. And in the Elliott wave cycle, Elliott wave is a little pattern where the trend starts. It starts with a breakout and it goes through about a 5-wave sequence before it corrects. I'm going to show you how to use a Fibonacci extension to draw a seed wave. So the very first move on AMD to the upside, that was the first cycle up. And just looking at how it projected out resistance points, you'll notice those resistance points just from where I'm clicking right now. It kind of nailed 2 or 3 of those resistance zones in advance. You'll typically take that and you can run it sideways and you can hit targets. You could pull it down to the old support zone. You'll notice we hit a couple of other support resistance zones. And some traders will pull it all the way back down to where they started and forecast out that way. And you end up getting similar forecasts. But look how well you forecasted resistance. You nailed it 2 times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
If I use this method where I drew off the most recent support, I picked up the other one. And, just going from the original plot, you keep hitting the ratios. Well, that's how an extension works. So right now, if this was a bull retracement and I wanted to come up with a target, I'd measure that wave cycle from bottom to top, and I would pull it back down to the new support zone. And that would give me an estimated target. And each one of those lines would represent a potential resistance zone. You'll notice that the existing resistance lines up with a Fibonacci. 100% would be the exact same size swing. So that swing from 2450 up to 20 to 30, that's that cycle. That's the same target out there. So that's how an extension works. You can, anytime you get a pullback, let me go redraw this one here. It's a relatively good targeting method. So that, just to kind of put that into perspective, you did forecast a resistance. Now, if you draw enough lines on a chart, you will hit something. I guarantee that part. If you draw enough lines on a chart, you'll hit something. So that's the projection technique. You're trying to forecast out where you think resistance is going to come in. The support zone concept, let me go erase those. I went the long way around to get to that. Okay, I'm going to zoom in on this and just show you how the retracements work. Anytime you see a cycle from support to resistance, and you see prices come back down, you can use the Fibonacci retracement tool. So I'll give you an example of this last cycle hindsight. From bottom to top, it retraced back down 50%, and it just coincided with the old resistance. So that's an example of a retracement. I could take it to the same current cycle right now and measure this cycle here. Let's see if I can get that to move. I'm just going to hang that on top and adjust the bottom down. Anytime it pulls down into a zone with a Fibonacci zone, you watch for the signal candles. And what you're ultimately looking for is a Fibonacci zone. So this one I drew off of just the short cycle, and we hit a 50% retracement. If I measured the same setup all the way back down to that, I can hit another pivot point. It coincides. That's called a Fibonacci confluence. If you take two different measurements and you come up with a support zone, draw enough lines on a chart, again, you'll hit something. But the fact that it's a 50% off the short cycle and a 23% off of the long cycle and its old resistance, I've come up with enough technical reasons to believe support might come in. And so far it has. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to hold. The wave cycles and patterns. I mean, I think it's really an interesting topic because it does. And I've actually done this with students, Tim. I've taken students and showed them like two different pullbacks, one that has a perfect Fibonacci on it and one that doesn't. And I just tell them that without prior knowledge, which one of these two pullbacks do you think is prettier? And 9 out of 10 students over the years will pick the Fibonacci without any explanation as to why. It's visually aesthetic. It's aesthetically pleasing. It matches what we expect to see. And when you see really well-behaved stocks with good trend cycles, there's usually some Fibonacci's at play. And I think it's one part naturally occurring phenomenon, one part self-fulfilling prophecy, because traders use them. The algorithms have incorporated the Fibonacci's. It just kind of plays out in real time, but it's a very interesting pattern that can help you make money if you don't take it too seriously. When I first learned to trade, I thought Fibonacci's were the end all be all, and Elliott wave was the end all be all of charting and technical analysis. And I could see the pattern often enough that I believed that, but the patterns are variable. And there's news and information can change the outcome. And it's good technical analysis as long as you have good risk management. You don't bet the farm whenever you think you got the perfect pullback.
Interesting.
When you learn it first as the mathematical concept before trading, it makes more sense. If you think that it's like Noah said, the golden rule of trading, then I can see where you're like, this is kind of hogwash and it doesn't always work. But
so here's my thing then. I think based on what you're saying and based on my understanding how people develop trading systems, which I've seen and done forever, secondary indicator, Noah, not a primary indicator, kind of like a qualifier type thing.
Let me put it to you this way. I've drawn enough Fibonacci lines on my chart over the years. I know where they are just by eyeballing it, and I don't even measure them anymore. I don't even use them just because I'm like, oh, that's a fib. I see Fibonacci's. So it's in there visually for me. And I used to think it was a primary indicator because it was a high probability support zone. But when I figured out that it's a variable, that it could be this line, that line, or the other line, and any one of them could be valid, then I had to use other points of confirmation, moving averages, support resistance zones, trend lines. I like the idea of the more, the merrier. The more technical catalysts I see, if I got it on a 9-period moving average and on a Fibonacci retracement and it's a support resistance zone, that's like that's a triple confirmation point.
Triple band.
And you still wait for confirmation.
And you still wait for confirmation.
Yep.
Well, I got to tell you guys, this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed myself today.
Did you have fun on a Friday?
I had a damn good time, Mark. I enjoyed this a lot.
On a Friday?
And there's trading going on. The reality is, this halftime report just lets me work through my routine. I've already done most of my accounts and all my trading. Now I'm going to get ready for the scouting reports, and we're going to have an amazing show there as well. Guys, if you love tackle trading, as always, we love you. Give us a like, give us a share, get the word out there. If you ever need help at all, You just join a lounge. Come and join us and ask questions and participate. Be in the game, get your butt in the seat, and really learn how to do this. There's not a get rich quick answer to anything in the trading markets or in the investing markets. You have to learn it. You have to absorb it. You have to apply it. And Mark, if somebody's out there watching and they don't have a trial to tackle trading, how do you hook them up?
Email me Friday Fun Day at team@Tackle Trading.
Or right below in the description, there is a link. Click that link. It'll bring you to the 15-day free trial.
Yeah, that, or email me team@Tackle Trading. Say some nice things. I've been known to give a few extra days.
Very good.
If you lie to me.
And Noah, thank you for dropping the knowledge on Fibonacci's. I'm going to go watch that doc. I actually really enjoyed that. Yeah.
I listened to it and I'm like, I really should incorporate, because I do buy I do know that computers have incorporated Fibonacci's into their decision-making process. So,
if you guys, I'll do the next time I do a coach's show or something. I'll do a full hour deep dive.
That'd be great, Fibonacci's,
and we should record it for posterity.
I agree. Let's do it. All right, guys, we're out. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you on the other side.